Things are looking up. Your business is growing. So what's your next step? A bigger office? A new supplier? Your next big contract overseas? Your business has growing needs. You'll need more support, more flexibility, more resources, and a bank that makes it their business to help expand your business. Welcome to Business Banking with HSBC. All our experience and expertise brought right to you so that you and your business can take the next step. You'll have support from a dedicated relationship manager and access to our global network of experts. The flexibility to manage your finances across multiple devices. International accounts all on one platform. And much more. So choose Business Banking with HSBC and take your next step.
Hello and welcome to the 7th Annual Indonesia Economic Forum. We are broadcasting live from Jakarta, Indonesia, to most of the major regions in the world. We've had 3 days, 2.5 days of very intense, very insightful, and I think very exciting discussions on a range of issues. Our next session on the future of Agri-Tech is also another very important issue facing Indonesia and many countries in the world. We have a global panel to discuss some of these issues. Food, as we say, is a basic necessity. We all need to eat, and ensuring food security today is one of the top priorities of all governments around the world, including Indonesia. In fact, today many countries around the world regard food security as a national security imperative. Indonesia is one of the largest food producers in the world, and yet it struggles to feed its 260 million people. This is largely due to a number of factors, including low yields, infrastructure bottlenecks, lack of investments, and also a high wastage in the supply chain. Add to that, of course, we have climate change and the environmental impact of large-scale farming. Given these factors, it is clear that the agricultural sector is under great stress. But there is good news, and there are solutions out there, especially how new tech can dramatically improve food efficiency within the agricultural sector. Agri-Tech today is now a buzzword amongst both startups and investors. A recent study by McKinsey and companies showed that agriculture lags behind other sectors like transportation, media, and commerce in terms of digitization. We have seen how the digitization of the retail market is already underway and how it has dramatically transformed online shopping and delivery. This will also trigger a significant shift in how food is produced and delivered to the household. Agri-Tech today is a major industry. In 2018, investment in the Agri-Tech sector increased by more than 40%, or around $17 billion US, a staggering rise from just $2 billion in 2013. Big investors such as SoftBank, Google, Temasek, and other wealth funds are participating in the Agri-Tech investment boom. Indonesia today is also part of this revolution, with a growing number of Agri-Tech startups. The next panel will explore many of these opportunities. It is now my pleasure and my privilege to introduce Pak Sandiaga Uno, the founder of STSP, which stands for Seribu Teknopreneur, Sejuta Pekerjan. In English, 1,000 technopreneurs, 1,000,000 jobs. He has been a fierce advocate of using technology to create new jobs and improve our economy. Pak Sandi, of course, needs no introduction in Indonesia, especially to his millions and millions of fans across the country. More importantly, Pak Sandi is a close friend and a strong backer of the mission of the Indonesia Economic Forum. Pak Sandi, the IEF would not be complete without you. I would like to inform you that this is the 7th annual forum that we have held since 2014. And this year we achieved 2 milestones. Firstly, we are 100% virtual. And secondly, this year we have gone global with participants and speakers from more than 10 countries. So we are also aligning to the new era. It is now my pleasure to invite Pak Sandy to take the time, and the screen is now yours.
Thank you very much, Pak Soeb, for such a kind introduction. And truly, this is my 7th attendance in the Indonesian Economic Forum. I've attended while I was still managing my private equity business. I've attended when I moved on to join Pak Prabowo in the political lives. I've attended as a vice governor of Jakarta. Last year, or a year before that, I've attended as a candidate for vice president of the country. And now I've attended as somebody who's jobless, in between jobs, but I continue to see a remarkable transformations in all sectors of our lives, as you have shown in IEF, transformations into virtual. During this keynote address, I would like to keep it very quick and very tidy in terms of my interventions on how we see the Agri-Tech revolutions. I think if you look at the pandemic and the slowdown in the economy, one sectors that continue to be promising and growing is the agricultural sectors in Indonesia and other parts of the world. We are seeing a lot of challenges when it comes to providing food to our populations. We are seeing that during this pandemic, food is the new internet. Food is the buzzword now, from the upstream side of farming to the table side of the culinary experience. And if you look at this, COVID-19 is not only a health crisis, but it is a multi-dimensional threat in terms of the stability of the food supply. We see some demand adjustments, but more than ever, we're seeing disruptions in the stability of food supply. More than 50% of the world's rice productions are from Asia, China, and India. Small and medium farmers produce more than a third of the world's food. 500,000 tons of rice were stuck in ports in India earlier in the year, while more than 500 million people they are at risk of falling into poverty because the lack of food supply. So the pandemic is actually started as a health, more of a health crisis, but it has turned into economic crisis, and we are seeing layoffs upon layoffs. We in Indonesia have seen 9.7 million people are now out of jobs. And worldwide, we're seeing also that 1.25 billion workers will be affected in sectors such as tourism and other sectors. So if I look at the increase in the unemployment rate, it will also significantly correlate with their income and their ability to purchase food. So the bargaining or the power of buying power of that bottom of the pyramid is greatly affected, because there are large number of populations that potentially will experience a decline to income below $3.2 per day, in particular in areas like Africa, also in Asia and the Pacific. And if you look at the percentage of import as a total consumption, Indonesia is also quite vulnerable because we have high food imports and we are vulnerable to change in food prices. So earlier in the year, I've outlined my 5 food ideas or Agri-Tech ideas with the STSP, Seribu Teknopreneur, Sejuta lapangan pekerjaan, meaning that if we can create 1,000 technopreneurs in the areas such as agriculture, we could create jobs. And once we create jobs, we create incomes, and then that will bring back the consumptions that will boost the economy. In this pandemic era, country like Indonesia has the opportunity to fill the deficit gap and prevent food crisis. We should focus on growing our food independence, food security from the domestic at the smallest level down at the village level up to the nation. We could multiply the local food production capacity by the interventions of technology, and not only in terms of fertilizers or in terms of seedlings, but more also on how we create efficiency, also how we could reach the market very, very effectively. And we can enrich our food mix with the original Indonesian raw materials, like as the abundance of fish. We are at a dilemma now. We have not been able to push a very strong fishery agenda and policies. We need to apply technologies and at the end create green jobs for millennials and the generation Z. I call them Zillennials. So most people now, when you talk about agri-tech revolutions, think that when a lot of, we're now reaching close to 8 billion of people around the world, and they eat more calories naturally. But the survey has shown that people are eating more calories than they should, especially in developed markets and some developing countries. But in some poorer countries, it's actually there's a big gap that they're not getting enough calories and protein. So the agricultural industry has to radically transform. Not only the transformations that we've seen the last 50 years, but the next 50 years. We need to expand the scale, the speed, the productivity of farm equipment, in particular in Indonesia, leading to more efficient cultivations of a very constrained land that is available for farming. The world population is on track to reach 9.7 billion by 2050. It requires a corresponding 70% increase in calories available for consumptions. Water supply will fall 40% short of meeting global water need. But there is technology. For instance, I'm seeing that there is a new study saying that plant-based meat will be able to fulfill close to 40% of the meat required and the protein required by the growing populations. So by the end of the decade, enhanced connectivity in agriculture could add more than $500 billion to global gross domestic product. Asia should garner about 60% of the total value simply because the unstoppable trend is the rise of Asia. And Asia will produce the biggest volume of crops. Many use cases, crop monitoring, farming by drone, livestock monitoring, autonomous farming, fertigations, precisions, and other technologies that we could introduce. In short and in conclusion, I am very optimistic that agriculture will be one of the promising industries, although it is world's oldest industries, but it will find itself as a technological champion. We are now at the technological crossroads, and once we pass this inflection point, we will be agricultural and technology will collaborate to produce a sector champion. And the success and sustainability of the planet's oldest industries may well depend on this technological transformations. And with that, I close my remarks. Thank you, IEF, for having me 7 years, continuing 7 years collaborations with Pak Soeb and the team. You guys have been very great, and success to the IEF. And thank you, the distinguished panels and all participants for joining IEF. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak Sandy, for your brief, but I think very insightful and very sharp comments and ideas on how we can grow our agricultural sector. Would you mind taking a couple of questions from the panelists?
Sure.
We have some panelists, some investors from India who are very keen to engage with you going forward, and they've graciously agreed to be on the panel. Nalin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. So,
Yes.
Pa Sandy, I heard you very carefully, and you are one of those few people who actually has grassroots connect because of your travel for, when you ran for office, and you've seen the length and breadth of Indonesia, you've interacted with farmers. Is there appetite to adopt technology by the farmers?
I've met farmers across Indonesia, from Aceh to Papua, and I would say all of them are very eager to adopt technologies. It's just that it has not been available to them because they have been treated more as an object, not as a user, as a subject. They've been used as people who will just receive products without proper training, without proper mentoring, without continuity of programs. The government has focused more on pushing these technologies from the government point of view. And this is where I think the potential is, Nalin, whereby private sectors, entrepreneurs, millennials, farmers can come in. Right now, farmers in Indonesia, the average age, 65% is of the age of about 50 years old. So it's really, really a graying part of the populations that is engaged 30% into farming and agricultural. So we need fresh influx. And with the millennials and the generation Z now very interested to transform, I think they are eager to embrace new technologies. Nalin.
Yeah. So I think you touch an important point. I didn't know that the aging is that high in a country that's so young. And part of it is the fact that this rapid urbanization and farming is just not looked as something as a career choice, right? Do you think there's the larger issue of the supply chain itself for a distributed country like Indonesia?
Yes. I would say 60 to 70% of the issue are with the mechanism of how to reach the market. It's from farm to table, as well as the distributions that is being dominated by loan sharks, by, I guess, middlemen who are exploiting these farmers, getting the most gain. So the most complaint of the farmers is that we are being blamed if the food prices goes up. But once we reach harvest, the price is always at a point that is the lowest. And for them, sometimes it is not even commercially viable to even harvest the products because the price is so low. So the mechanism that these technology is presenting is going to dramatically transform how we could bring farm produce to the table. And this is, again, I think, to create a distributions that is open, transparent, technology-based, digital space, and available for farmers across Indonesia, as well as to the customers. And the government needs to facilitate. I don't think the government would do justice to this agricultural industry if they tend to become the regulator and the player. It's going to be very difficult if they continue to regulate and to continue to act as a player. The government should be facilitating that farmers could get the best of prices and customers could get stable and affordable prices. And that's very, very doable if you adopt technologies.
Interestingly, when you spoke about loan sharks and the pricing mismatch, it almost sounded like India. But Pa Edward, you were taking notes. I suppose you have a comment or a question for Pa Sandy. You are on mute.
Yes. Hi, Pak Sandi. Yes. So actually, there was a report by Angin. Probably you know that Angin is one of the angel network in Indonesia. And the report came out that only 2 out of 15 are only focusing on impact investment. And these 2 is from Indonesia. And the rest are not from Indonesia. So why is that?
Thank you. If I could explain to the audience, Angin, which means wind in Indonesia, is the angel investors network that has been established in the last few years, focusing on basically investing in startups that have huge social impacts. And true, the finding is pretty much correspond with the numbers that Inotek is seeing, because we have incubate, we have nurtured, we have recognized and mentor more than 50 innovators. And it is very difficult to find impact-focused innovators or inventions. Most of the 64 million SMEs, including some in the agricultural sectors, are there for survival. They are becoming entrepreneur by necessity, by default, not by design. So this is something that we need to fix, Pa Edward. And our program, Seribu Teknopreneur Sejuta Pekerjan, STSP, precisely, and thanks to Nalin and Sachin, we're making headways, and we're measuring the impact of all the activities and the initiatives that are being done. What are the impacts to the planet? What are the impacts to the people? And definitely this needs to be sustainable in terms of the economy, in terms of making profit. So thank you very much. And we need more initiatives. We need more capital to ensure that the social innovations that focus on impacts can blossom here in Indonesia.
So, Pa Sandy, apart from being one of the earliest VCs in Indonesia, Pa Edward has also launched a green fund, a social impact fund recently, Gayo Capital.
Congratulations, Pa Edward, and
thank you,
I think the unstoppable trend, other than the rise of Asia, would be the alternative energy, and green fund will definitely going to see a lot of activities as we switch post-pandemic from not so friendly energy. I used to invest in a lot of these companies to more renewable and new energies.
Thank you. Shoaib, I'm going to give it back to you. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Nalin.
Thank you, Sandy, for your time. As always, very insightful. I think what you do is really provide a lot of hope and encouragement to the young Indonesians. The one thing I wanted to mention is, you mentioned that the average age of farmers is 50, but the millennials can also be farmers. We just have to rethink and reimagine farming. It's no longer out there, backbreaking work. With technology, we can reimagine farming, and I think with STSP, that is really where things are going for Indonesia. So once again, Pat, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you, and we're so grateful for your time.
Thank you for having me, Sharp, and success to IEM.
Thank you, Pat. Nalin, I hand back the screen to you to introduce the panelists and to proceed with the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shoaib. That was a very, very interesting presentation from Sandy. He always brings a different view. One, because of his deep connect with the rural heartland of Indonesia. Today, we are going to talk about Agri-Tech and why it's exciting for investors. Now, if you look at agriculture itself, Sandy said the same thing. Land is fixed. Populations are booming. There is rapid urbanization. And as countries get richer, and I'm talking of the context of India and Indonesia, people eat more and more diverse, which you can see in the obesity levels and lifestyle related diseases, etc. So Agri-Tech becomes very important, not just to create volumes, but different kinds of food. And Agri-Tech encompasses everything from actually growing stuff to getting it right up to the table of the end consumer. Shoaib mentioned earlier, the sector, if you look at it now, approximately in the world would have about 9,000 startups, more than $28 billion funded in 2,200 companies. But more interestingly, more than the 28 billion and 2,000 companies that have got funded, half the funding is in the last 2 years alone. So there's been a boom, absolute boom in the last 2-3 years. If you look quarter and quarter, you would think it's dipped in the last couple of quarters. But if you take chunks of 3 years, which is a typical investment cycle, you will see that investment in Agri-Tech has boomed 5 to 10x. It also has 3 or 4 unicorns now globally. In Southeast Asia, if you look at it, you would look and say, but in Southeast Asia, we got only about $500 million in, say, 2019. But $500 million in 2019 is a 400% increase over a few years ago. So not just globally, even in Indonesia and Southeast Asia, of which the 2 markets that we are discussing today, India and Indonesia, are a big part, growth in Agri-Tech investment has been huge. So the questions really are for the panel today, are India and Indonesia on the right trajectory for Agri-Tech startups? How do investors and financial institutions look at this in the long term? What sectors within Agri-Tech are most attractive? And what kind of government policy intervention does this sector need? Because it is a highly regulated sector. And there is a lot of political sensitivity moment it comes to farmers. Even as we speak, India is going through massive farmer agitations, and the capital of India is under siege by farmers because of small law changes. Very sensitive sector. But to help me with all these answers, I've got a very elite panel. A panel which I would like to introduce. We have Professor Kudang. He's from IPB, the leading university of Indonesia, not just for agriculture, but overall. He holds and wears various hats. He heads the Department of Mechanical and Biosystem Engineering and Computer Science. He is an honorary board member at the Asia Pacific Federation for Information Technology in Agriculture, and also the Indonesian Society of Agriculture and Informatics, and a member of International Society of Precision Agriculture. He has written various books, is a researcher, And as you can see, just from the positions he holds, a very, very accomplished individual. So welcome, Professor. Welcome to the panel. Thank you very much for joining us. On the other end of the spectrum, we have Mr. Chinnu, Senthilkumar. He has a very global experience, largely technology oriented. Few people know that he was among the youngest awardees by the President of India for the National Technology Award. He has worked in some of the largest organizations of the world. Incidentally, he hails from a farming family, and I know his agriculture and farming is very close to his heart, and hence he takes a very keen interest in that sector. Welcome, Chinnu. Welcome to the panel. We have Pa Edward, who I have had the privilege of knowing for the last 3 or 4 years. In Indonesia, he's well known as a serial tech entrepreneur. He founded many tech companies. He's probably seen the ups and downs of the tech and the financial services industry. Among the first venture capital firm founders of Indonesia when he set up Ideosource. But more recently, he set up Gayo Capital and a green initiative under Ideosource, and is part of various UN development programs. And generally in Indonesia, he's my go-to man when I think of investments or trying to connect with anybody in this sector. Welcome, Pa Edward.
Thank you, Nalin.
And finally, what would life be if we did not have lawyers? Now, in such a highly regulated sector, and where investments are global and money is flowing globally, you need expert help to structure deals and to make sure that you're doing the right thing the right way. So we are joined by Mr. Vijay Sambamurthi. He's a leading lawyer from India, but he has a practice that is international. In India, he's got offices in India and Singapore, and is expanding very rapidly. He's helped a lot of our companies to structure deals and find investors from all over the world. Welcome, Vijay. Welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Nalin. Pleasure to be here.
I'm going to start with Professor Kudang because I would like to get an Indonesian research perspective first. So if you could give us your opening remarks with a special focus on what kind of research activity are you seeing in technology, precision farming, hyperlocal farming, etc., from a university perspective and people who generally come to you for support on this. If you could unmute yourself, Pa. Pa, you're on mute. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you, Alin, for introducing me and giving an opportunity to be the first speaker. My name is Kudang Borosminar. I am from IPB University, and I'm the Dean of Faculty of Agricultural Engineering and Technology. So I am now working on the smart and precision agriculture research, and we have produced what's so-called PreciPalm, precision platform for oil palm. So basically what we are looking for in the future is that agriculture should be brought into prestigious level, especially for young generations, because this is already the factual trend then that the young generations tends to leave agriculture because the attributes attached to the agriculture is something low prestige, dirty, low income, and so on, and with the traditional equipment compared to other sectors. So I think our university changed the way we see agriculture. This is a complex system, connected sea, land, and air, and we have to approach the agriculture as a complex system with interdisciplinary approach and holistic approach from the land to the consumers. Even we start looking for after that, which is the waste management. So basically, the food that starts from the land to the consumer should be guaranteed it is produced with the very good agricultural practices. It involves many actors, and it should be assured that every actor will execute their job according to the procedure that has been set up. So the Agri-Tech is very potential in Indonesia because inherently Indonesia is the agricultural land, agricultural country. So this is very, very important to improve agriculture for the future. So our research now is that we try to utilize, to take benefit of frontier technology to significantly, radically, and drastically improve the business process of agriculture. Everything that can reduce human mobility, physical mobility, everything that can reduce environment pollution, everything that can reduce the inconvenience situation of the workers, which is usually they are very, very tightly operationally labor intensive. They are not having an opportunity to work in comfortable fashion because they work with very physical things like, fertilizing, harvesting palms, and so on, carrying some fruits, and so on, with the very conventional technology. So we would like to bring this situation into something much, much better, how to humanize human. And the ultimate goal is that, so all actors in the chain of food value, chain value of the food from land to consumer, everybody enjoy the value. So every actors enjoy the value and enjoy comfort, enjoy something that they are really, really, feeling comfortable and feeling prestigious with that. So now the technology is directed towards how we create a system, tools, even from very simple tools that can be, introduced to farmers, how to record the data, how to enter the data, that finally data is interconnected to the IoT, and then but after that, the farmers have opportunity to link with other people, with other entities outside. So now they are not being blocked by intermediate people. So they can be open to direct market, they can be open to direct provider, and they can see how their product, move on from one state to another in the supply chains system. So we working on that, and we're working on traceability, which is basically traceability will improve transparency, and transparency from now customer, they are very intelligent. They want to know where the food come from, how they were processed. So they are looking for very healthy food, and they must be assured that the food were processed correctly. So we working on that right now in IPB, and the research platform has been changed that we should look in the future potentials that can significantly improve agriculture. And at the same time, we have to be able to increase the economic level of the farmers as usually the marginal actor in the supply chain. So this is, I think, our target now, Mr. Nalin. Thank you.
Your university also runs a very fine incubator and accelerator.
Thank you.
In your experience over the last few years, have you seen a greater interest from the youth to take up agriculture-related projects?
Well, because we incubator have been managed and have been successfully developed in IPB, from this empirical point of view, we are very optimistic that Indonesia will have a good prospect for startups in agriculture. Yeah. And why? Because they think that the survival of the human life depends on food. So actually we need food, but the problem, we don't pay attention to food correctly, or maybe we don't treat the way we produce food correctly. So now from the university perspective, as the institution that carry out three pillars, education, research, and community services, we should bring a good influence to the people. This is the way we live. This is we will manage the agriculture. Because agriculture will ensure human survival. So if we rely on that, the premise we rely on that, then we have to manage agriculture in the right way, so your survival will always be safe, and you can do something besides that securely. We cannot be advanced in any aspect if our food is not secured. So this is our premise. So this is our what you call it, basic premise, why IPB needs to take initiatives in that agricultural perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Kudang. Chinnu, I would like to come to you. You were born in a farming family. You spent your life in technology. You lead a tech fund. with virtually the who's who of India technology sector investing in it. What's your view? You must be having a larger canvas exposure. What's your view on the region and what's happening globally?
Thanks for actually Professor Kudang, who kind of opened up this space. So Nalin, the way I look at, I'll kind of paint the global picture in investment trends, then try to contextualize for both India and Indonesia, because like all of you said, India and Indonesia have very similar challenges in agriculture sector actually. So I think both Mr. Sandiaga and you touched upon the aging workforce. Indonesia, the average workforce in agriculture sector is about 45. But if you take Japan, it is 67. And Europe, it is 65. And United States, it's 58. So definitely it's a big problem, the workforce shrinking in agriculture sector, because the young generation doesn't want to take up agriculture because it is seen to be very manual intensive and what so on. So what has been happening, the only way you can address this problem is to attract youngsters as well as to supplement this declining workforce, massive technology adoption actually. So what I see in trends, in investment trends, using artificial intelligence and computer vision for multiple things. It could be ranging from crop yield estimation, weed control using drone and computer vision, quality control in supply chain. In fact, we have invested in a company which is in California called AgShift, which does basically check for fruit and vegetables. I'll explain a little later more about that. So they actually automate the quality control of the fruits and vegetables actually, and then use of drones for multi-purposes actually. And in fact, actually, you must have read recently, Elon Musk has been launching several satellites, and many of them are aimed for imaging satellites. They are called LEO satellites, low Earth orbit satellites, where you can collect lots of information and in a localized manner, which can be used for better planning actually. So I think, I see technology coming in multiple ways and trying to address this workforce shrinking, declining actually, plus automating it, making it easy and attract the millennials to continue farming actually. The second thing, again, some of the speakers touched upon, the supply chain optimization. If you look at it, Walmart, Amazon, they heavily rely on supply chain technology. Because if you look at it, they procure their products from all parts of the world and thousands of SKUs, in fact, tens and thousands of SKUs. And they also understand individual customer preferences, all parts of the world. And they made it so that you don't need to even visit the retail shops. So it is becoming more and more virtual shopping actually. I think in a similar manner, you can bring supply chain technology to agriculture sector, because like Indonesia also, I understand, that has thousands of islands, and the farming happens only in certain 3-4 islands, which is Java, Madura, Bali, I think. And so that basically brings up the question of land overusing. Probably you may have to take the agriculture to different parts of the Indonesian islands. But when you do that, how do you optimize the supply chain? Because otherwise you end up wasting resources. And also there is a need to precisely control the supply chain so that you can plan better and optimize and also increase the profit, which is very, very important actually. So the supply chain will play a role both in India as well as in India. It's going through a supply chain modification. I think Indonesia also probably will go through. That's my reading of the situation. It is happening all over the world. And like if you re-optimize the supply chain, actually you can reduce the wastage and you can bring a lot of benefits. You can increase the profit. And I think companies like like Amazon, Walmart has shown in retail world, which can be taken to the agriculture sector actually. So I think what I see is like wider adoption actually in Indonesia that could benefit a lot. Third point, what I see from an investment point of view, sustainability. I think Mr. Sandiago touched upon this non-animal based proteins. For various reasons, the new generation is going towards vegan style. India, we have large population of India is vegetarian, and even throughout the world, for health reasons, or people are conscious about climate change. So there is a trend moving towards vegan style. So there are a lot of companies like Beyond Meat And even Indonesia, I've seen there are startups coming, which is addressing this growing population, which is shifting towards non-animal based proteins actually. And I think it's good for everyone, win-win for everyone. I think what Indonesia may have to look at is, because whatever the Beyond Meat or these companies which have incubated or scaled in US, it is to address the consumer taste buds in the United States and in Europe. Probably you may have to come up with research as well as like ideas which can convert these mega ideas to localize for Indonesian population, because I think the food items, the taste preferences will vary from region to region. There is a lot of scope of work to be done, and I see a lot of startup ideas in Indonesia localizing this actually. And the other one actually I like to bring it up is very successful. It is again related to sustainability. India introduced a plan called Soil Health Accord Scheme about 5 years back. So basically, they collect soil from different farmers, like you have small holding farmers in in Indonesia and as well as in India. But the problem is they don't know how much fertilizer to use, how much manure to use, and in fact, there has been a lot of overutilization or underutilization, which results in basically spoiling the land, which is a larger environmental issue in the longer run, and also overuse of land. So there are many issues which are long-term issues need to be addressed. So India has unveiled a scheme called Soil Health Card Scheme, which collected millions and millions of soil samples all over India. They have soil laboratories across India. So they basically, compile the soil health. They give the macronutrient pattern, micronutrient pattern. Then based on that, they map the chemical or fertilizer use or maybe organic form also. So it has been very, very successful. And I think, this would be of very, very interesting to Indonesia. So I think if I look at it, there are multiple trends globally and as well as in India, which is very, very applicable to Indonesia, which can be contextualized for Indonesia. That's what I see essentially. And it is an interesting sector. Like you say that in the last 2 years, there has been a lot of investments. Like I said, we invested one company in food inspection, agriculture and food inspection, which is California and Asia focused. And I have seen several other investments. Personally, I have invested in supply chains related to milk supply in Tamil Nadu, actually in India.
I'll come back to that. But the investors behind your fund, are they showing an increased interest in Agri-Tech post-COVID or pre-COVID?
Actually, not just so basically the investors, they basically look for good returns. And interestingly, many LPs, if you go to family offices today, if you say that you are investing in sustainable practices, social impact, there is a good number of investors get excited about it. It is no longer they are only interested in looking for money. In fact, I have come across several social impact funds. Okay, within our investors, there is an interest, there is a preference. And also I have come across several social economic impact funds, which give relatively less return, but investors are willing to sign up actually. And this ranges from family offices and corporates with CSR funds. And there are a wide range of investors. They are open to investments in agriculture sector because it basically addresses sustainability, social economic impact, which is very, very appealing to many investors actually.
Fantastic. That's my perfect lead to go into and call Pa Edward into this. So Pa Edward, when you started Ideosource, I guess that must have been probably 7, 8, 10 years ago. And Gayo Capital is newer. So could you give us an overview of what pushed you into this? You are a person who can catch early trends. Do you have a sense of deja vu that 10 years ago, the Ideosource when started, the VC industry was not that organized in Indonesia? And now when you start Gayo Capital as a sustainable financing option or a social impact fund, again, you feel that, oh my God, I'm back to trying to create a market.
Thank you, Nalin. I think your questions really strike the purpose that I'm into Gayo Capital right now. So I've been talking to entrepreneurs that they need to have a purpose, right? But at later stage, it also struck me that as a venture capital, actually there should be a purpose also. So I've been researching in the past 3 years, actually, looking for agriculture and also impact angle investment. And surprisingly, most of the startups that focus on agriculture, they mainly focus on the downstream segment of agriculture. While the way I see the problem, like, Pak Sandi and also Pak Kudang said, that the problem is not in the downstream. The demand generation is there. The market is there, but the problem is more on the supply side. And more importantly is the farmer themselves. They're marginal in terms of within the value chain. So I'm thinking, why don't I focus on the upstream? So we have two taglines. One is to unlock the ultimate potentials of Indonesia agriculture. And the second one is reverse conglomeration. And looking at the experience that I had with Ideosource VC, there are around close to 40 startups that we invested, right? And out of these 40, most successful one, usually they have a very narrow focus. So they don't do many stuff, but I give you an example. There's one wealth management mobile application. There is an investors with the strategic mindset in the way they invest in this good startup. They said, I have this security and asset management company. I give you 150 million worth of transactions from 3,000 high net worth individuals. You take this and you run the company as the mobile wealth management application. At that time, he had around 150,000 millennials customers. And he said to these investors, I don't want to take this 150 million worth of customers of yours because of the 3,000 high net worth individuals of your customers require different way of serving, right? So the difference is the digital transformation. As you know, the millennials, they don't want to go to branches. They don't want to meet people. So they just want to be served by the application, right? So that's the difference. This guy, the startup, is really focused. So correlating that to the reverse conglomeration, the way I see it is that agriculture needs an investment whereby we support this small startup in agriculture and let them create their own ecosystem, healthy ecosystem. And innovation should come from bottom up, not top down. So if you see conglomerated agriculture investment, the innovation I don't think will be as huge as what I experienced in the VC world. So that's the reverse conglomeration that I mentioned, Nalin.
So, Edward, when you say upstream, are you concentrating on technologies that will help people produce more? Is that what you're concentrating on?
Okay, we have a target actually in the first 1 to 3 years. We implement what we call venture debt. A lot of VC, we know they don't want to put money into working capital. But for us going into the upstream, definitely we have to scale them. So we have to go the path of venture debt. But we see, in parallel, we are investing in technology company within the agriculture startups. So the aim is within 3 to 5 years from now, we should be seeing industrialization in the agriculture in terms of technology advancement in, doing the agriculture sector. So that's the aim, Nalin.
So, yesterday I was hosting a panel on sustainable finance. And interestingly, 35% of professionally managed funds in the world, to the tune of $20 trillion assets under management, is on sustainable financing. But when one of the things we spoke about that in Indonesia, we are having trouble getting Indonesian investors to come in for sustainable financing and the ESG initiatives. So the green bonds are being launched, but they're generally being launched overseas. So do you find that to be true? Do you find Indonesian investors are yet to come on the bandwagon for sustainable financing?
I think it's true. And if we recall my questions to Sandiaga, yeah, 2 out of 15 players in the impact investment, which most of them also cover the agriculture. There's only 2 in Indonesia that focus on that, which is one is Gayo Capital, the other one is MDI, which is part of Telkom. Yeah? So I think it should be coming from the industry ourselves instead of waiting for the investors to come in our sectors. So that's why, this session is very important, not only for the potential investors in Indonesia, but also for players like me to promote and to create funds that focus on impact and also agriculture.
So investors who put money in these funds, when it is for sustainable financing objectives, do they have a lower expectation of return, or is it the same return plus this?
Okay, I think with the structure that we have right now in the venture debt is a different type of investors that we engage right now. Yeah? So these investors are actually conventional investors. They definitely put money into us, not expecting as the risk that we're facing in a VC as the equity participation. So they get their money back, yeah, out of the venture debt. On top of that, we structure the quasi-equity, right? So in terms of the incentivized them putting money in us, they get their portion of the warrant at the end of the terms, actually. So it's the different investors, actually, Nalin, for now.
Okay. Sometimes I think whether it is just a little bit put aside as a balm on the soul for all the other investments and the returns they get from that. So yeah. So I think that is a perfect opening for Vijay, because this kind of behavior sometimes is more associated with lawyers. So Vijay, what are you seeing? Because you are not a conventional lawyer, right? You're a guy who gets deals done and you do large deals. You interface between investors and entrepreneurs. What are you seeing?
So first thing I will say is I think some excellent points have been made by all the panelists, including by Sandy in his introductory remarks. And I would, the first thing I would say is that there are a lot of similarities from an agriculture perspective between Indonesia and India, and indeed between some other Asian countries. And why I say it is similar, first of all, for both India and Indonesia, agriculture is a very important sector. It constitutes a very substantial portion of the GDP. And yet, both countries struggle to kind of meet their own demand at times, let alone meet the true potential of export demand. And both countries are dealing with similar kinds of problems, which could range from high population density to some degree of intermediaries eating away a lot of the pie, and so on and so forth. So the problems are very similar, including small and fragmented land holdings, which prevent any sort of scale from taking shape. And interestingly, looking at it from a big picture, both countries are also making regulatory and legal changes, looking at it from the prism of a transactional lawyer. Nalin referred to the recent changes, very recent changes in India on the agriculture side, where he talked about, farmers agitating in New Delhi. But I think it's a very interesting moment in India's agricultural history, because I think for the first time, some attempt is being made at a legislative level to address some of the very core problems that has plagued Indian agriculture. And one of the key elements of that approach is to what I will call de-intermediatize the whole sector. So which means, put the farmers directly in touch with the businesses that matter to them, or put the farmers directly in touch with the consumers who will consume their products. So I see a similar shift also happening in Indonesia from a regulatory standpoint. The recent November omnibus law makes amendments as I understand. I'm not an Indonesian lawyer, but I do keep in touch with stuff that's happening in the region because, as Nalin mentioned, my firm and I do a lot of cross-border work. So we do keep in regular touch with what's going on in the region and around the world. So as I understand, a similar kind of a wave of regulatory reform is happening in Indonesia. And a large part of that omnibus law also makes reforms to agriculture sector. And as I understand it, it has also provided for, just like the Indian farmers ordinance, the Indonesian omnibus law also has made provisions for very sweeping changes to cutting down red tape, cutting down the number of registration processes and the timelines for registrations and licenses, cutting down the supply chain inefficiencies and shipping related changes and so on and so forth. So therefore, as an introductory remark, Nalin, I would say that the two countries, India and Indonesia, have had historically similar reliance on agriculture, historically similar problems, and are taking hearteningly similar approaches now to solve the problems. And in both countries, in the context of this session, I would say, apart from the regulatory change, one of the big things that is enabling the regulatory change and the mindset change is technology or Agri-Tech. So it is, in my view, growing up in India in the 70s and 80s, we heard of the green revolution and then the white revolution and so many other revolutions. But I think the term Agri-Tech revolution is far less hyped than those terms, and it will have far more impact than those revolutions.
Thanks, Vijay. If things become as simple, much simpler as you are suggesting, lawyers and chartered accountants like you and me won't have any work.
Well, I would like to believe that's true, Nalin, but if you look at the markets like United States, the more sophisticated laws get, the more complexity there becomes, because people are always trying to innovate. And one of the parts of innovation is making sure that we are able to fit evolving business needs and evolving commercial needs to the legal framework and to make it workable.
Okay, so in this next segment, and in no particular order, I'm going to start with Chinnu and then go around the four panelists. And I'm going to give you time to think. I want you to talk to me about one exciting project in the Agri-Tech space that really blew you away. So I'm going to give you one from my perspective, and you can think about one from your side. So I recently came across this company in London. What they do is that, the London Tube is more than 200 years old. So they hired from the local authority all the unused stations of the London Tube, about 8 kilometers of it. And they do hyper-local farming 50 to 100 feet below the earth, and they just bring it up and supply it to people. It became a unicorn in 6 months. All they do is farm below the earth on useless track lines of the London Tube. So that's the example of an exciting Agri-Tech solution or a hyper-local farming solution. But Chinnu, I'm going to come to you first, then I'll go around. Tell me about one company where you invested or you missed an investment that excited you in this space.
So thanks, Nalin. In fact, I will take the investment we made, which is still exciting. This is a company called AgShift, which is based in California, but it is a cross-border startup with research team in Argentina, and the companies in California. Also, there are some engineers in India. So this is founded by a lady called Mikuja, who is of Indian origin. So essentially what they are trying to do, in fact, previous speakers, Mr. Sandiaga and others, touched upon the topic. The manual labor has to be shifted to automated. So if you look at quality and inspection in agriculture and food inspection is an important part. So if you look at, if you go to California, California is the fruit bowl of United States. They grow strawberry, they grow cherry, there are blueberry, there are so many fruits and nuts varieties. And actually they have hundreds and thousands of people who manually inspect these fruits for grading actually. So they look at the strawberry. In fact, actually, I learned a lot. There are people who look at that for years and years. They have 20, 30 parameters to look at strawberry alone. They look at the strawberry color. Based on that, they grade it. And based on that, they say ripened or not ripened. Then the size, bruises, cuts, dots. Because if you take the strawberry to the premium brands like Rally's in California, they will not tolerate any of these small bruises and cuts actually. So the quality has to be extremely good. So how it has been happening so far is there are a set of trained inspectors who manually look at it. They draw a cotton from a truck or maybe from a batch. They look at it. Then they say that it is good, not good, meeting the standards. So you have to train them. And the problem with this, one is manual. The second thing is it is not 24/7. Third, actually, there is no consistency because no matter how well you train, actually it is going to vary from one inspector to other inspector. So this company has come up with a scanner where you can keep the fruits or nuts in a tray, maybe about 20, 30 strawberries in a tray. And it has basically, it has LED lights basically, which scans the fruit, and it is parameterized into 20, 30 parameters actually. Like, you can look at the color. Based on the color, how ripen it is. It is very important. Say, for an example, if you're picking up a strawberry, if it is very ripe, you may not want to send it to New York, which is 5 days shipping, because by the time it's a perishable item, it may get wasted. So you may want to take a decision and sell it in the local market. Similarly, you can grade it and to say that this is something should be given for a premium market. In fact, the stores themselves, they can set the parameters actually. And so not only strawberry, they can do it for nuts. So in fact, some of the companies, they buy pistachio and actually they process it in Vietnam. So this is being used in Vietnam also. And in addition, they are actually kind of experimenting to check the freshness of fish and actually also shrimp actually, because we have done one proof of concept. Because in shrimp, the intestine basically causes little bitter taste actually. So actually using this computer inspection, the vision inspection, you can actually, if it reaches certain threshold compared to the shrimp size, you can eliminate, which was manually done. It was error prone. So there are several applications. In fact, there is one more application also I can explain. Nowadays, GI tag is becoming very, very important. So people like to get branded item. They want to say, for an example, if mango is shipped from India to United States, people like to buy mango from certain areas, certain soil. So this particular scanner, you can actually in the field, a mobile version can tag it, digital tag it, and the consumer can track it, the path it traveled, and he can ensure that he got the actual fruit, which is grown in a particular area. So there are plenty of applications I have seen coming to this company.
How old is this company?
So this is about roughly 3 years actually, 2 to 3 years actually.
And is it a fund investment of yours or personal?
Yes, it is a fund investment, and there are other funds like Seracap invested, we invested, and so they are looking to raise next round probably by next year. And but this is like very, very innovative. They have won many challenges, awards. There was one agriculture award actually in California. I forgot the name of it. 100K they won. So it's a very, very innovative and disruptive. And so there's a lot of good response with the customers. Personally, I like it how to use the technology and disrupt the agriculture supply chain actually, and food supply chain actually.
Good. All the best with your investment. I hope it does better and better. Vijay,
Thank you.
You have a company that has excited you in the agricultural space?
So, Nalin, let me put it this way. I will not talk about a company that has excited me because there are quite a few candidates which are doing very interesting things. And I don't want to, pick one of them over the other. But what I will say as
lawyer down and get a specific answer.
Very difficult, isn't it? But that's the reason we get consulted on some of these things, because we give vague sounding advice, which actually means a lot. But jokes apart, I think what I think a country like India, and indeed a country like Indonesia, which has many similarities, needs to do. When I talk about disruptions, I will talk, rather than talk about individual startups, I will talk about a couple of ideas which I think have huge disruption potential for markets like India and Indonesia. First, I will talk about hydroponics, which has shown a lot of promise, and it's working very well in China. From what I understand, China is again a huge market and a very large urban pocket. India has many urban and semi-urban areas, and even our rural areas are getting increasingly very densely clustered with concrete. So for a country like ours, all the innovations need to solve more than one problem, as I look at it, right? So rather than just solving for how can we increase productivity, doing something like hydroponics solves two problems in my view. One is it increases productivity by increasing the ability to cultivate in buildings, which was formerly not feasible or thought possible. So therefore, in sheer volumes, that increases the productivity and the quality of the production because it's controlled conditions, etc. And second problem it solves is it offsets the increasing carbon footprint by increasing the green print of cities. So I think that's one, method or, technology or method which can really help countries like, Asian countries in particular. Second one I will talk about is there has been an approach taken in states like Gujarat, where the irrigation canals, which have been pretty much open canals, have been covered up with solar panels to effectively turn them overnight into solar farms. I think it's a very simple idea, doesn't take a lot of investment, and it utilizes the land that is already being used for agriculture. And the irrigation canals usually had a lot of problems with things, risk of poisoning, risk of people drowning. Now you're eliminating those problems as well, and at the same time you're providing for a clean tech push, a clean energy push. So I think these are two interesting approaches that I have seen in India in particular, and also in other markets like China. And I think there's a lot of potential for approaches like this, which can, as you know, Nalin and Chinnu, in India we use a term, it's called Jugaad. It basically stands for, clever ways of, clever hacks to find simple ways to solve complicated problems. And I think along with technology, some innovative thinking and Jugaad thinking, as we Indians call it, will be the key to solving these problems.
Thanks, Vijay. Professor Udang, you must be coming across a lot of innovative developments. Is there any one particular one that has caught your imagination of late? You're on mute now. Professor Udang, you'll have to unmute.
Yeah, because I'm not the businessman, I am the academician. But I have a very, very impressive project with me, research that is funded by a private company in Indonesia. And it has been running for about 4 years. And it seemed that it is very prospective because they would like to have a very long term of collaboration to support our research, which is the Pressipalm that I just mentioned. And I'm the leader on that project. Why? Because Pressipalm is dealing with the very prima donna fruit of Indonesia, which is oil palm. And this is very strategic, but the business process of the oil palm plantation or company, they still use very manual, and the almost all plantation company, private or governmental, they still use the way of examining the nutrition status is using what's so-called sampling method. So they collect the soils from the field of the oil palm, and then the leaves, and then to reduce cost for laboratory inspection, they usually combine some of the sample into one to represent one block around 30 hectares. And this is done manually. So we replace this business process without any taking sample. So we use the cyber space using remote sensing technology, satellite and radar from Sentinel. And we try to build the model to predict the nutrition status and it works with the accuracy above 93%. So by that now, the company like fertilizer company Pupuk Kalimantan Timur, even they are not growing the oil palm, but they are the seller of the fertilizers, they think that this is very potential technology that they can use for marketing strategy. Because if they sell the fertilizers just based on the price, usually the people looking for the cheapest price. And the product of PKT is very, very customized fertilizers. So the way they did the improve the marketing strategy, they introduced the innovation strategy using this precision palm. So anybody that buy the fertilizer from that PKT, that Pupuk Kalimantan Timur, will get free services of knowing the picture, visual map of the nutrient status, nutrition P, K, and phosphor, calcium, and nitrogen. So they can see, and by knowing that, they know why we need this much fertilizer and how much fertilizer should be applied to a certain area. And in management perspective, everybody knows the status of that. So this is radically changed the business process that has been done so far until today, that usually using what's so-called sample taking, bringing to the lab. And you know, if the company or the field is far away from the lab, they have to package and to transport and take several months, which is not real time anymore. So I think this is very, very impressive for me because really radically changed the business process in the oil palm fertilizer. And fertilizing spend about 60% of the whole field cost of the operational cost. So I think this is most impressive for us.
Fascinating. It brings so many technologies together just to get that done. So that's really, really interesting. I'll come to you, Pa Edward, finally. I notice on social media, you standing in farms and companies that you're looking at for Agri-Tech or social impact. Which one has really captured your imagination?
Okay, I think the word is precision farming, Nalin. Yeah? I think some of the panelists also mentioned that. Yeah. So let me give you two examples of our investment. The one that we invested in 2014 is part of agriculture, is in the e-fishery. It's called e-fishery. E-fishery, they're making the IoT and basically to optimize the FCR, food consumption ratio. And we know that the cost of goods for producing these fish will take around 80%. So if they can optimize the FCR, it goes directly to the bottom line. Yeah, and this company, when we invested, we were the first investors in e-fishery. It was only 2 million US, less than 2 million US, and now becomes a Centurs already. Yeah, it's a 100 million company, and definitely it's a potential to be the unicorn. Yeah? Right now they have a 20,000 devices spread throughout Indonesia and also Vietnam, and there's a lot of business model that they can make out of the supplying to the farmers and also creating a marketplace because they have a data in the cloud already. So there is a precision farming aspect that they can predict harvesting amount, and they're able to seek these the buyers easily. And the second one is tuna swamp. We just invested this year. It's surprising that indoor vertical farming, we think, just like a hydroponic, a simple, solutions to develop this hydroponic, but it turns out that a lot of IoT can be implemented in these devices, and they created the IoT pattern that they can pattern to supply the nutrients and also the lighting. Yeah, and this technology is not as simple as what we study or learn. There's a lot of research, trial and error that they have to do. But like you mentioned, this I think giving me some idea also. Do some farming underground. I think it's very interesting. But it boils down to the precision farming. I think that's the future.
Thank you, Pa Edward. We are completely out of time. I must thank all my panelists for absolutely wonderful insights, etc. I keep hearing the similarity between the two countries, but I must tell you, in agriculture, the complexities of Indonesia are far more than India because of the lack of a common homogeneous landmass. It is just so spread out and fragmented.
That's
so
right.
I live in Jakarta. I know it's a very different world than India when it comes to agriculture. But young people are transforming Agri-Tech, and investors are showing interest. What Pa Udang said was amazing of the kind of work the university is doing. I will come down and see it one day, Pa Udang. I'll visit the university and hopefully see it for myself. Pa Edward, wonderful work. Again, a pioneer, apart from just venture capital, now into sustainable financing. Vijay, cross-border deals, agriculture, you seem to be everywhere. And Chinnu, you were the only one with a real farming background on the panel, but with a tech investment portfolio now. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thank you for participating. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nalin. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Nalin.
Photo session?
Well, thank you, Nalin, for moderating, and thank you for all the panelists for such a invigorating discussion on, I think, a very, very critical topic for both Indonesia and India. We really have, I think we could have gone on for at least another 2 hours, but unfortunately we have run out of time, and we are moving on to the next session. This is going to be a back-to-back session, but thank you so much, Chinnu, Vijay, and Pa Edward for joining us, and of course the professor too. And Nalin, have a safe flight. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon, and thank you for your participation in the Indonesia Economic Forum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.